Hello, and in this reading, we'll be looking at this very mixed and complex palm and trying to solve this little mystery. I think I've gotten to the bottom of it. I've had a good think on it and I've showed it to Terry, and it appears that in the Jupiter finger itself, there's an extra transverse line which kind of creates the illusion of an extra phalanx in the finger itself. It's very rare, and it's most commonly seen on the little finger and Apollo finger. You only see it in about 1% of people, even less for someone on the Jupiter finger. And on closer inspection, I kind of discovered a few things relating to this in this person's palm, or at least I think I've gotten to the bottom of what this means. And I'm going to explain what this means later on in this video. But what I'm also going to concentrate on in this person's palm is an often overlooked aspect of palmistry known as dermatoglyphics. I've often overlooked this, and that's because in order to really study the skin ridge patterns themselves, I need clarity in images, and I often rely on, well, images online of famous people, and they're terrible, and images that people send me, and they're often not too clear as well. So I pretty much overlook it just because I can't. This image I took myself, and one of these images is certainly good enough to analyze some of the skin ridge patterns. Now, dermatoglyphics is about 400 years old, the same age as handwriting analysis, and it's a new addition to palmistry. It's funny how handwriting analysis is the same age, and yet it's taken very seriously by government authoritative bodies, FBI investigations and things. Yet palmistry is still scoffed at. Now, there's three main areas of dermatoglyphics, and that is the skin ridge patterns. And here's one. You can see it's in. These are known as apexes, where a triangular formation of skin ridges kind of form. They sort of all point towards one convergence here. Look, you can see another just there, and it shows us exactly where the central point of the mount is, which shows us many aspects about a person's outlook and all sorts of things, providing extra layers to the complexities of a person's psychological makeup. And then we also have loops in the skin ridges, like we have one here. This is known as, so a loop in between the Apollo and Mercury finger like this on the skin ridges on the palm itself is known as a loop of sense of humor. And then also another aspect of dermatoglyphics, quite obviously, is the fingerprints themselves, the fingerprint patterns themselves. And on this Apollo finger, we have here a tented loop fingerprint, which is, we have here your classic kind of loop, which is the most common fingerprint, but then it's also propped up by this sort of tent-like shape. And so the loop, being the most common, is this sort of flexible approach, and then the tent or this arch is a kind of more a rigid approach, and so the two together provide a more sort of complex outlook. Not only is this person flexible, but they're also rigid in their flexibility. I mean, it's an oxymoron, isn't it? But it's it does provide the person with some sort of contradictory nature. They are both set in their ways and also able to adapt, if that makes sense. And it depends on the situation, and other areas of the palm will kind of show more information as to how this affects this person. And for example, the apex here on Apollo is nice and central. However, the finger itself tends to lean slightly towards Saturn. Now, a nice central and slightly raised apex on Apollo like this shows creative abilities. But then the finger leaning towards Saturn like this might well then steer that person's, let's say that it's possible that their talents are leaning more towards their career. So it's almost, you could say that they're ignoring their talents in order to, they're ignoring their creative talents in order to work, because Saturn is the finger of, well, you know, why the career line points towards Saturn. That Saturn is Father Kronos. It's the inevitable. It's time. It's planning. It's doing the right thing. It's duty. And so that's one interpretation, at least. Not entirely certain that that's accurate. However, let's just kind of go back to this one a little bit before I move on to the basic sort of shape of this person's palm. So a tented loop on Apollo is rare, and it does possibly, as I say, dermatoglyphics is still in its infancy and not really enough research has been done on this, but it can lean towards a musical gifts there. So looking at both the central and reasonably high placed apex, along with this here, we have the potential for a musician. And then the other thing I would look at to try and find a musician in a person's palm is, and you can't really see it in a photograph so much, you can see it so much better with a photocopy or an ink print of a person's palm, and you'll see a kind of negative, oops, didn't mean to do that, in this area of the palm here, where the fingers meet the palm itself. There will be a kind of a white space where the palm itself isn't able to make contact with the paper in an ink print, and that's because of the way the muscles in the fingers develop when a person plays an instrument. And you could argue this isn't palmistry, but then I would argue that all aspects of analysing a person's palm is in fact palmistry, no matter how you come to what conclusion. So that's the other aspect I would look at, and you can sort of see it here. There does seem to be a bit of a concave in where the fingers meet the palm. Now, I'm just going to admit here, but I have taken this picture myself, and I do know this person to some degree, and I already know that they do play an instrument. So I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes here. I'm partly doing reverse palmistry and showing how the palm can show us what we already know about a person. But I didn't, you know, this is quite a recent discovery for me, in any case. So the other thing I would look for with regards to a musician in a person's palm, well, I mean, several things really. One of the things I would look for is how developed Luna is in general, how much out it sort of protrudes. Also, in the skin ridge patterns, going back to dermatoglyphics, I would look for a loop coming up here like this from Neptune, the place of captivating others and holding an audience and hypnotizing others with inspiration. And this is actually known as the loop of inspiration. And the other thing I would look for in terms of dermatoglyphics, as far as a musician is concerned, is potentially a memory loop as well. And sometimes you can find a sort of an S bend in the skin ridges, in the skin ridge pattern as well. And again, this kind of audible talent for expression, I suppose. So that goes with both singing and music making. So singer-songwriters often have these. So those are the things I would look for, and among other things as well, a long Mercury finger, certainly, and this does classify as a long Mercury, and I know it doesn't quite reach the first phalanx of Apollo. However, when you offset Mercury and Apollo, how low set Mercury is there, you know, it does actually measure up. It is actually a long Mercury finger, only just. However, Mercury is a little bit on the thin side, and that's showing that this person's literal physical voice isn't quite loud enough, and the low set Mercury as well shows some sort of lacking in confidence, which is a shame really, because I think if this person had just a little bit more confidence, they would have their voice would be heard, and their, essentially their thoughts and feelings would obviously also be taken into account more. So I've been neglecting getting down to the basics here. That's because it's tough. It's hard going. So we have a very mixed hand here. I mean, yes, the palm itself is rectangular, but when you look at just how much it kind of splays out, it makes more of a square. It's a squarish rectangle. It's a rectangle. Let's just classify it there. We got a rectangular palm, and this image is certainly more accurate because the angle is flat on. And again, I've taken these images, and I can't stress enough, when you're taking pictures of your palms, the angle needs to be flat, otherwise it distorts findings. So this image, it's not a great angle, whereas this image, you can see how the fingers in relation here, you would say, well, this is a fire hand, the fingers are short, the palm is rectangular. Well, here you can see the fingers are actually longer, almost. They look longer in this image, and it's because of the image is flat on. So the angle really does and can distort findings. So it really shouldn't take too long to, determine whether or not a person is long palm, short or long fingers. To categorize someone into Fred-Getting system of 4, it shouldn't take long. But this person is very mixed. I mean, I would say overall this is a water hand. This is a long palm, long fingers, but only just. I mean, it's possibly a fire hand. I mean, what do you think? I mean, this is a tough one. It's best to measure the Saturn finger against the length of the palm, and if the Saturn finger is 7/8 of the palm or longer, then you have a long Saturn finger, long fingers, and so long fingers, long palm in this case. But I'm a bit undecided. I think it could just about be a fire hand. So when it's so close like this, I like to think of this person as being, on the cusp, and therefore a bit of a mix. So they're probably a bit of a mix between a fire and a water, and that creates this sort of contradictory nature, a very sort of complex nature. And so, this person has a loop here again on their left and right hand in between Mercury and Apollo. So they have this inborn, inherent sort of sense of humor. But then on all the fingerprints, pretty much, there's a tented loop, and that's very rare. And so you have this kind of serious flexibility in all aspects of, a person's communicative abilities, their approach to how they tackle things skill-wise, and their talents, and how they show themselves, reveal themselves to others, and their work ethic, and their kind of decision making as well. I just feel that this person has always been, never quite felt they fitted in. Now, the things I'm going to point out here that sort of stand out to me straight away is the large gap between the head and the lifeline here. The headline starts very high up on Jupiter, and there's a strong loyalty line there, very strong, at least one strong loyalty line. And then obviously this massive anomaly, if you like. It's something that I've not come across before. And the other things I've noticed straight away, just looking at the left and the right hand, is the space in between Apollo and Saturn on the left hand is much larger than on, other way around. It's much larger on the right hand than on the left, the space in between Saturn and Apollo there. I mean, when you look at the fingers, they lean in towards each other, but there's still a gap. So it sort of shows that On the right hand, so this is how this person is affected physically, practically, materialistically, that although this person wants to be more inclusive, wants to include themselves more socially, they're still finding it sort of difficult to include themselves. And on the left hand, there's less of a difficulty there. There's still a bit of a gap. So inherently, internally, this person's always been, I think, a bit of a loner, or at the very least, works better on their own. And now there seems to be more of that. Now the fingers they both lean in towards each other more. Apollo does it anyway. But that's the major difference here. Saturn leans towards Jupiter. This person, at the time this picture was taken, was thinking a lot about their career and how to better their career through decision making. Whereas on the right hand, Saturn leans towards Apollo, and this shows more consideration towards others. Inherently, this person is trying to think of others, but at the same time is apprehensive about that social setting. And I would say, well, Mercury looks a little longer on the left and the right hand, but we've already discovered that the angle taken here isn't accurate enough to, come to any of these kinds of conclusions. Now, the space in between the life and the headline shows, firstly, independence, a hugely independent person, but also a sort of an independence of thought. There's often with a large space like this between the life and the headline, it shows impatience, impulsive behavior. There's a lack of a connection between the environment and the kind of mental faculties or the decisions made, and that's why there's this kind of impulsive nature at times. But then other areas of this palm show a very grounded, and like the fingerprints show, this sort of, I think if we were looking at loops all over the palms, or the fingerprints, or whorls, I think then there's a bit more to worry about. I think if the headline veered off into lunar, sharply down towards the heel of the hand, we'd have more to worry about. I think if there were a girdle of Venus sort of stretching from over here right up over here, kind of mimicking the heart line, there'd be more again to worry about. I think actually the stability in this person's palm, the rigidity, the angle overall, there's a nice right angle down on the heel of Luna here, and that provides again more practicality. I think without these things, this person would be far less grounded. I think this the heightened headline here, the way that the headline begins so far apart from the lifeline, actually shows independence. And another element of the palm that shows us independence is the third phalanx of Mercury here, and it doesn't look too long or too wide. Actually looks a little bit shorter, but not short at the same time. And we don't want too much independence. I don't want a person thinking and feeling that everything is achievable by themselves, because not everything is achievable by themselves. And I think actually what this ties in with is again this feeling that the distance here between Saturn and Apollo, it shows this feeling or want to be alone, in fact. And what you normally see with a person who requires a kind of freedom in isolation is a Mercury finger that leans very far away, or you see a large space in between the tip of Mercury and Apollo fingers. But you don't really see that here. In fact, on the left, these two are quite closely tied together, which again is another sign of Apollo being talents and creativity, and Mercury being expression and communication. The two are tied closely together, and that could be seen as again a musical outlet, an expressive outlet, or a poetry even. And I think if there were other signs in the palm that showed, like if we had a career line that leapt from Luna and worked its way right up onto Saturn, or in between Saturn and Apollo, or a success line that stemmed from the heart line and worked its way up onto Apollo, then we'd see the makings of a musician, or a career in music. But we don't see that so much. But what you do see in people's hands who where Apollo leans in towards Saturn, and Saturn likewise leans into Apollo, we see a career. Very commonly, we see a career where people are putting their efforts into helping others. It shows consideration of others. To sum it up, that's what this means, that when the two fingers lean in towards against each other like this. And you often see it with support workers, social workers, doctors, nurses, even cooks. When we see people's efforts that are considerate of others, we see these two fingers leaning in towards each other. Now, if these two fingers were too close together at the base and this was happening, then I'd be concerned that this person isn't giving enough time to themselves. And also now we've got a heart line that's, it starts fairly low down, especially on the left. Starts low down, it branches up in between Apollo and Saturn. It just about reaches onto the Jupiter Mount itself, and it shows, we've got a branch here reaching over, and that's some experiences here. There's some disappointment here, and it's changed this person's ideas of what it should be in a relationship. Overall, we have here a person with a well-developed emotional makeup. This person is well balanced emotionally, and mentally speaking, this person is a little bit indecisive. You can see by the waviness of the headline, and there is a danger of depression here. Now you can see it, you can't quite see it in this image, but I've got a kind of a darker negative, and that's to solve this mystery out, to help me do that. But if you look at the headline here, notice how this is the person's mental kind of outlook, and it sort of changes over time with a variety of experiences that they go through. But notice this little line here, it's reaching, it sort of tries to connect, and I'll show you there. There's a possibility for this to form, and if it does, then this person's thoughts are kind of reaching into a darker place. And yes, it shows an ability to draw from areas of deep imagination, but then also it shows unrealistic thoughts, and those can be associated with suicidal thoughts, or heavily depressive thoughts. And it might be at one point this person, this line was in fact doing this, and now it's sort of, this person's now more not depressed, so to speak. Their mental health is better, and so this line is no longer there. That might have been what happened. Or it could be that there was an event they went through that really was very painful, and so for a very short period of time they were feeling very low. I don't know, it's hard to say, but this down here is not a good thing, and I don't want it to get any further. I think this person during their early 20s suffered some pretty bad luck. The good news is this luck was nearly permanent. It's hard to explain, but you can see here an apex on the lunar mount. Thankfully, it's not any lower. if it were, this line going through it would spell a disastrous misfortune for just about the entirety of their life. However, this person has somehow come away unscathed. Now you can see this awful island here at the age of around 20, from around 21 to 24, 25, something like that. I mean, maybe a bit earlier than that, maybe 20, something like this anyway. This period for this person, I think their university years, so to speak, were not a lot of fun. And there's also what looks like a line, or at least some sort of impression, working its way from the lifeline, comes across, and it seems to sort of hint at being connected to the relationship. And this is what's known as a change line. You can kind of see it. It works its way. It's not too heavy. It's on the right hand rather than the left, which shows how this is materialized. This is physical. And it could well be that this has already been and gone for this person. And being that this person is so loyal, I know that it wasn't this person at fault. And it could be that there was something in this person's family relationship, or their actual relationship itself, that's come to light and has revealed itself and has impacted on this person. I'm not sure if this has already been and gone. In any case, it's known as a change line. There's not really it can be seen as some sort of betrayal. It's not necessarily, the marriage itself. Sometimes these relationship lines that come in from the percussion side of the palm are in fact relationships we build with work partners, and it could be something that's come to light, working with someone that's kind of brought about it's an obstacle because it's affected all areas of this person's life, their mind, their emotions, and then it's affected the relationship itself, or it's at least attached to it. So it's not necessarily an affair in a relationship. I just want to put that out there. It's hard to know. Now, on the right hand, just at the base of the hand itself, where the palm meets the wrist, you can see that there's a bit of a bridge here. The base of the palm rises. Let's have a look. You can see here how there's a bit of a bump there, a bridge, whereas on the left hand you don't see this so much. And I think that's because this person has had a vasectomy, potentially. Now 35, roughly, thereabouts, maybe a bit older, maybe 36 or 37, was a particularly challenging time for this person's life. That typical crossroads period in people's lives. I see it all the time in people's palms. It's 35 to 36 is so commonly a crossroads period in people's lives. You can see where the headline meets, where the fate line or the career line meets the headline. The headline then begins to double, and that's on the right. That's my dog. And on the left, we don't see that so much. There are changes still, though. Late 20s, there was this person stopped working in one role because of some environmental issue. But they didn't stop working altogether. I think there was a plan to change roles anyway and work more alongside people. And you can see a career line that kind of aims from lunar. You can see the secondary career line starting here, and it's sort of coming from lunar, and that's this place of working with others, for others, in consideration of others, working with an audience. It depends on the context. In this case, it's certainly working with and for others. And you can see here this line here, this from the lifeline, this sort of influence of change, and it seems to sort of say, well, okay, there's something coming into play here from the life that's stopping one avenue and starting another. And around this sort of age of 36, the headline leans back in to the career, and that sort of shows that the head is really focusing on improvements, development in the career. And then you can see a sort of triangle that's formed out of this, because the success, or the sun line, the finances, or the beginnings of that success come from this improvement. And this is in line with what we see on the other hand. With this doubling of the headline at this time, this person had to develop another way of thinking in another environment. So there were two challenging environments where this person had to, put their kind of work hat on and put their sort of home hat on, and two very different environments, it seems, or at least this person had to become a very different person in work, and work in a different way, and think in a different way. And it's very typical of air hands to have double headlines. And I suppose you could say, well, this is a sign that this is in fact an air hand, but there are in truth elements of all four elements in this person's palm. There is a little bit of air in there. There's certainly water, air and fire in this person's palm. I would say this is predominantly just about a water palm, and an air hand as well, and then with a little bit of fire thrown in as well. So this person's a bit of a complex breed. Now let's get down to this mystery, and I've already spoken with this person about this and what I think this means. So I got talking to this person, and they revealed to me that the second phalanges of the fingers represent the mind, and they also represent months of the year and years themselves. So I kind of did a bit of deducing, and after a while I came to the conclusion that this was in fact to do with this person's head. So we have in the palm itself, we have this section of the palm itself represents the body, this represents the mind, and then this is the more sort of the higher aspect of the mind itself, and it's more to do with the ego and where we receive inspiration, and this is more to do with the spirit, so to speak. So we have mind, body, spirit, or body, mind, spirit. Let's be more logical about it. And the fingers also replicate this. And so when looking at what this transverse line means, and look, you've got these other vertical lines in between, and it creates this illusion of an extra phalanx. It's not an extra phalanx. There's no extra knuckle joint in the finger itself. And any horizontal line is some sort of obstacle. Now, this obviously, as I said, it represents the mind, but more specifically, it represents all areas of the head itself. It could represent something to do with the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the teeth, the throat even. it's the entirety of this sort of part of the body. So it really is down to sometimes asking or talking with the client to find out what certain mysteries in the palm mean. And this, I was really perplexed. And I spoke with this person about this, and I said, have you suffered any sort of head injury when you were young that's sort of long lasting? Have you ever had any scans or issues with the brain at all? And there was nothing. But then this person mentioned, and I had noticed a slight scar on this person's head. And before I could sort of, ask about this person then said, well, I was 11 pounds at birth, and I had to, the forceps were used on me, and this scar on my head is as a result of that. And if you look on all of the phalanges here, you can see there is a line on all of the fingers. So this phalanx, the second phalanx of Jupiter, is associated with our leadership, our managerial abilities, executive managerial abilities, and it could be said that one interpretation could be that this person struggles to lead or manage. I don't think that's the case, because this line is across all of the fingers, and you can even see it on the other hand as well. It's across the second phalanx of all the fingers. So this is, the left hand is, Cairo would say that's what we've been given, and the right hand's what we've made of it, which is, it seems a little absurd actually, because that would mean that babies' hands were, they'd be born with identical lines on both hands, and it's just not the case. It's an oversimplification. The left is more internal and the right is more external. And there is some truth to it, the left being the past, the right being the future. But it's not quite that simple. So to have an obstruction here on the kind of mental plane, on that sort of on that head area, on all of the fingers, it does seem to show something more physical that's always been there, near enough. And so that then I think ties in with this this person having had forceps used on them at birth because they were just such a large baby. I think that it's a physical scar, because of how this has affected them physically. This has then transpired in the palms itself. That this has revealed itself in the palms itself. So I don't think that this is any particular obstacle to this person. I don't think that it actually has any effect or any bearing on their skills or nature as a person, who they are. I think it's just one of those curious little things, and it's the palm is sort of showing. I think if you were born and you were scarred in another way, say if you were your feet or your legs were somehow scarred at birth, then the palm would show it in another way. There'd be another way that I'm not entirely certain where now. I've kind of gone off into a tangent and painted myself into a corner. I'm not entirely certain where that would show up on the palm, but if I think sometimes the palm shows us something, and it's down to us to interpret and figure out what that means. And in this case, it's a very rare sign, a very rare marking indeed. And I think that I've read all sorts of things about the appearance of an apparent extra phalanx on a finger, and that it kind of creates an extra well or sort of pocket of abilities or skills in that area, or in fact that it's some sort of disadvantage, and that could well be the case if we didn't see it on every single finger, maybe. But sometimes it's worth just talking with the client, and in order to answer a question, you need to ask a question. So this is a very practical palm. I mean, forgetting the Fred Getting system, because it doesn't really work in this case. When you see a palm that's so mixed, you kind of need to forget the one category or one system and figure out another. David Brandon Jones would say that this is a mixture of practical and an analytical palm, and I certainly agree with that. And the fingerprint patterns themselves are hugely telling as to how this person thinks and feels. And the tented arch is that kind of fingerprint that does coincide with the overall appearance of this person's palm, long fingers, just about. And that is of a sensitive and emotional, artistic, creative and intelligent nature. And quite importantly, emotionally responsive as well. This person, I do think, would make quite a good counsellor, just being so practical and grounded. The downsides to having so many of this sort of type of fingerprint is, I'm doing well here. I've started with dermatoglyphics and I'm ending with it. Is the predisposition to nerve issues, so nerve system disorders, and being the potential for being highly strung. And I don't see that in other areas of the palm here. As I say, this is a very well-grounded and rational person. And yeah, I think I'm going to end here because I don't think there's too much more to say, really. It's been a difficult read because it's just such a unique and complex palm. And this little mystery here, I actually sent this off to Terry because I was just so confused about it, and he just sort of said, well, it's to do with the mind. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You always do. So there we go. And I did figure it out, but only with talking with this person, which taught me really that sometimes I don't think the palm has all of the answers. Sometimes we need to ask a question in order to answer one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.